we have, just so everybody can see, and Jeff is going to be taking the reins here, but I just want to point out, this is completely off. The 70s control scheme is off. Inputs, it's already at 0, or what would be 0. It's all the way off. Okay, so we're running 60s. This is the 60s control scheme right now. We're going to use same bass. Nothing else is touched. Nothing else has been messed with. That sounds huge. Mm-hmm. Was that kind of like what you were going for with the 60s control scheme? Bigger?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because it's noticeably different when you take that 70s tube out of it. It's fat.
Beefier.
Yeah.
Big time.
And I didn't hear any real loss of clarity on the note, even though it sounded fatter. It has that Motown vibe for sure.
Yeah.
Play that same riff.
That sounds different. Two settings before.
Yeah, you like the low. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you said that's about 20 hertz to about 4K, somewhere in that range on the low. Do you know?
Low. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It almost accentuates without, and that was cool about this setting to me. Again, no mids control, but what it does is it accentuates that mid-range growl that you expect from jazz bass pickups. Hear that?
A session or at a gig as a bass player and you roll that tone, if you work with an engineer and I throw that up there, are you happy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But now so far I still feel that this thing all the way at 12 with both tubes engaged is chef's kiss. That tone is money.
It's the blend.
Don't get me wrong, super dig the 60s tone. Nails the Motown thing right out the gate. And this specific setting where the lows are given a little bit more up front, not this one.
This one.
Yeah. Doesn't get bitey. Doesn't lose any of that lower resonance on that. It listen to that.
Still there.
Still there.
Yeah, Mexican Fender Jazz, and this has nothing to do with that. Kidding. up front, but it's not abrasive.
No.
I don't, and that's a problem with a lot of outboard preamps is you either have a one-trick pony, and depending on what you're into it could do that one trick pretty decent, but it's not. Its application isn't across the board, right? Because you don't have the option, right? It's either on or off. It's either running or not. This you can literally like dial in to a specific right there, right? Like a little more, a little less. That switch, this tube, and you have way more of a tonal variety, right? And I hate to sound like a broken record, but like my first impression as a musician, but specifically as a bass player to this, is that again the first thing that I noticed, the ease of use, and that it doesn't color your tone, it accentuates it. That's my biggest gripe with a lot of outboard preamps is that you have these these things they use in place of like quality components that like it's almost like a digital throw on colored everything that you're getting, right? I know that sounds kind of like wonky because I'm having trouble like placing the verbiage, but like as an engineer that when somebody comes in with some massive pedal board, or there used to be these things that they were called aural exciters. Do you remember those? The AURAL exciters?
Using my vocals a lot.
Hated them because they colored your tone so much it wasn't even you anymore.
Well, yeah, those companies set out to do that. Their purpose was to color and put their own personality stamp on your tone.
Granted, but especially like in the 90s and the 2000s, everybody was going for that sound, and every bass tone sounded the same.
Yeah, got you
on a lot, right? What's cool about this is that you can still find especially to a musician, the way you sound is very personal. Sure. You're a constant critic of it. Most of us are never happy with how we sound. Even with everybody coming up like, man, that sounded great, or that was the best bass I've ever heard, or the best guitar I've ever heard, or maybe somebody was bored and decided to talk to a drummer. Sorry, Keith.
Never happened.
No,
never.
I went to the bar.
That's all right.
But this specifically, and I've used a lot of other outboard pre's, whether it's recording or when I had them and you take them to gigs and stuff like that, or even when you play in church and stuff, they have certain things that you're going to run that you wouldn't necessarily run at a live gig or at a bar or at a stadium even. They're just access to different gear. One thing that's great about this is that it's the portability is easy on the eyes, it's light, and
6.5 pounds, right?
this is super consistent with what it delivers as far as your tone goes. And this is a passive bass. I'm really excited to hear how it's going to sound with an active bass and the MTD, and play close to the same riffs. It's a 5-string, so there'll be some more low B stuff because I want to see if it still maintains that clarity with that ringing out of the low B.
But while you're still strapped with the Fender on the Fender Jazz, let's go to the 70s.
Yes.